In 1968, young Iris and her fiancé Paul attend the Skyview restaurant opening. Paul proposed to Iris, slipping an engagement ring onto her finger. At that moment, Iris saw something terrifying. A boy above had tossed down a coin. It seemed as if death itself blew on the coin, guiding it right into a ventilation shaft. The coin got stuck in the fan, stopping it instantly. Meanwhile, people inside the tower danced happily, unaware that cracks in the glass beneath their feet were quickly spreading. As Iris and Paul moved into position, the metal supports below reached their breaking point. Bolts snapped loose one by one. Suddenly, the trapped coin shattered a fan blade, sending it flying straight into a gas pipe. As the dancers continued, cracks widened, and gas began leaking into the air. Everything around Iris made her uneasy. Suddenly, Paul fell through the floor. People began falling one after another, desperately grabbing onto metal beams. Below, ground staff panicked and ran for their lives. Paul managed to grab onto a pane of reinforced glass. Iris screamed for help, but no one came. She reached out desperately for Paul, but he slipped and fell anyway. Chaos erupted as terrified people tried to escape. A woman engulfed in flames ran into the gas leak, instantly causing a massive explosion. Those who couldn't run fast enough didn't survive. Iris narrowly escaped the flames. Staff shouted at everyone left to evacuate immediately. The boy who threw the coin sprinted ahead, leading the way. The panicked crowd rushed toward the emergency exit, but death had planned this too. The walkway collapsed, killing everyone who entered. Miraculously, the boy escaped unharmed. The remaining survivors rushed to the elevator, pushing each other violently in a bid for survival. An old man shoved Iris aside, but got stuck halfway through the overcrowded elevator doors. The overloaded elevator malfunctioned, crushing the old man horribly. Iris struggled to find another escape route, but the stress affected her pregnancy. She suddenly noticed objects sliding sideways, and the ceiling began to crack ominously. Sensing disaster, she quickly climbed upward. Others weren't so lucky. The floor split in half, creating a steep slope. People slid uncontrollably downward, landing on the reinforced glass. The woman thought she'd survived, but when she looked up, a piano teetered dangerously. Death once again intervened, dropping a coin onto the piano, which crashed down onto the poor woman. At this point, everyone in that group had fallen. The boy escaped, smiling smugly, until the piano landed directly on him. Iris mourned Paul deeply, but then she saw another boy in danger and risked everything to save him. At the same moment, the building above collapsed completely. At the last possible second, Iris grabbed onto a piece of metal. But upon closer inspection, it wasn't her hand that had saved her. It was Paul's engagement ring hooked on a steel rod. The fragile hold couldn't last long, and the next second, Iris plunged down into the fire below. Stephanie woke up from a nightmare during class. But it wasn't just a normal nightmare. For 2 months straight, she kept dreaming the same thing. Stephanie told her roommate about it. In the dream, there was a woman named Iris, her grandma's name. But Stephanie had never met Iris and didn't even know if she was still alive. Her roommate suggested she go home and find out more, hoping the nightmares would stop. When Stephanie went home, she asked her dad Marty about Iris. Marty frowned slightly, but smiled awkwardly, clearly hiding something. At that moment, Stefani's younger brother Charlie said he was going to visit their cousins. Stefani decided to tag along. Before they left, Marty urged them not to mention Iris to their relatives. This only made Stefani more suspicious. What really happened to Iris? If the woman in the dream was Iris and something bad had happened, then where did her mom come from? Once Stefani and Charlie reached their cousin's house, she directly approached her Uncle Howard. She wanted to ask him about her mother, Darlene. Howard was stunned and quickly changed the topic. But when Stefani mentioned the place from her dreams, the Skyview restaurant, Howard and his wife Brenda were visibly shocked. Stefani pressed them for answers. Her cousins joined in, eager to learn more. Finally, they revealed Iris wasn't dead. She had suffered a mental breakdown. But to Howard and Brenda, Iris was as good as dead. Stephanie wanted to talk to Iris herself, hoping it would end her nightmares. Frustrated, Howard explained that after their father died, Iris lost control. She stopped them from going to school, locked them inside, and lived in constant fear that her children would somehow die. Eventually, the police intervened and took Iris away. Later, Iris kept obsessively watching their foster care progress. Once Howard and Brenda had their own children, Eric, Julia, and Bobby, Iris started sending them scary letters. These letters were filled with warnings and gruesome photos of dead bodies. They eventually moved away, cutting all contact with Iris. Stefani asked to see those letters, but Howard and Brenda refused. After much pleading, Brenda secretly told her where the letters were hidden. Stefani found the letters, and what she saw shocked her. The woman in the photos matched her dream exactly. This meant the dreams were probably true. Determined to find answers, Stefani drove alone to search for Iris. Following the address, she ended up at a remote mountain hideout. Through an intercom at the door, she spoke with Iris, who urged her to leave immediately. But after Stefani explained she was Iris's granddaughter, Iris insisted she empty her pockets before coming in. When the heavy door swung open, Stefani walked carefully inside. The house was filled with strange obstacles. Even the roof was covered in spikes. Iris said this was all protection against unseen threats. As Stephanie slowly moved forward, Iris nervously ordered her to close the door quickly. Suddenly, a fire extinguisher fell outside. outside. She warned Stephanie not to touch anything. Anything could be a deadly trap. Finally seeing her granddaughter, Iris smiled warmly. She asked about Stefani's mother, Darlene. Stefani explained that she had been separated from her mother since she was 10 years old and didn't know how Darlene was doing now. Stephanie started asking about the nightmare. Iris told her it wasn't just a dream. She had once seen the future. She saw a disaster coming. Back then, she was with Paul on the highest rooftop. A woman's hat flew off, and a boy tried to toss a coin, but security stopped him. Still, the boy insisted on throwing it. Paul was just about to propose to her. Iris immediately warned Paul. The building was going to collapse. Everyone would die. Paul looked confused. Then Iris rushed to grab the coin from the boy's hand. She got the key object that would trigger the butterfly effect. She hurried downstairs, grabbed the pot that was on fire, found people dancing inside. She quickly grabbed the microphone, told everyone to look at the floor. Some tried to stop her, but others noticed the cracks below their feet. That night, she saved many lives. The building didn't collapse. Later, the restaurant shut down. Iris had stopped the disaster, but Death didn't like his plan being ruined. Years later, he came back and killed everyone who was there that night, including her husband, Paul. Iris learned how to see death coming. She had spent years stopping disasters. Now, death had finally caught her. She had cancer. While talking to Stefani, Iris let her guard down. Death silently arrived. A magnifying glass reflected sunlight onto a metal tray. The beam bounced onto a rope. It started to smoke. Iris believed Stefani's dreams were a sign because she might have inherited her gift. Iris sensed something was wrong. She turned her head and spotted Death's trick. She quickly knocked the magnifying glass aside. Death believed Iris would be distracted because her granddaughter was there. Iris told Stefani to stay, to learn the basics. It was too dangerous outside. She hadn't stepped out in 20 years. But Stefani didn't want to stay. She needed to return to school. Iris warned her. Death was coming for their family. But Stefani thought it was just a dream. She didn't believe her. She left without hesitation. Iris begged her to take the book before she left. Just as Stefani was about to walk out the door, Iris had a vision. The wind, the compass, trigger objects. She knew if she stepped outside, she would die. But for Stefani, she took the risk. She stepped out anyway, threw the book into Stephanie's arms, told her the book could protect the family. But Stefani still didn't believe her, so Iris told her to step back. She would prove it was all real. A sudden gust of wind blew in. It knocked over the compass. It hit a fire extinguisher. The extinguisher flew and stabbed Iris through the mouth. Now Stefani finally believed. Iris was gone. Her relatives attended the funeral. Stefani told her father and uncle that Iris had said death was coming, but they didn't believe her. Just then, Stefani's mother Darlene showed up. Still angry at her mom, Stefani walked away. Back home, she started reading the book Iris gave her. Meanwhile, the rest of the family was at Howard's place, having a barbecue, eating and laughing, completely unaware. Death had arrived. Bobby accidentally broke a glass, but he didn't notice the shard had mixed with the ice cubes. Eric placed his drink next to a gas tank. Clearly, they were about to become Death's new tools. Once everyone gathered to eat and drink, they unknowingly used the ice with glass shard. Howard raised a toast. He said Iris's death reminded them to enjoy life in the moment. Then everyone clinked glasses and took a sip. Suddenly, Julia started choking. She felt something stuck in her throat and couldn't breathe. Everyone rushed to her, but it turned out she had just swallowed wrong. She was fine. Inside, Stefani was reading Iris's book. She saw a chapter about the coin incident and a barbecue grill. Meanwhile, Eric was outside lighting the barbecue. Bobby called Charlie over to jump on the trampoline, but they didn't see the sharp rake hidden beneath it. The book slipped from Stefani's hands. She felt a terrible sense of danger. As the grill was lit, a photo frame fell and shattered. A shard of glass bounced across the floor. Whose drink had the deadly glass piece? Howard took a sip of his drink, but nothing happened. Then the camera zoomed in on Darlene's glass. Was it hers? Stefani, sensing something was wrong, headed toward Howard's house while calling her brother Charlie. Unfortunately, he didn't pick up. The trampoline had loose stitching and was about to break. On her way, Stefani saw a warning sign, danger ahead. It was like death itself trying to stop her. Then the glass shard was revealed in her father Marty's drink, but he only took a small sip and put it down. Howard went up to jump on the trampoline. The surface looked like it could give way any second. Luckily, Darlene spotted the hidden rake. She shouted and rushed over, pulling it out and returning it to the shed. But just then, Brenda accidentally knocked over a bottle. It hit the switch on a nearby machine. The pipes underneath began to twist and shake. The same rake from earlier started sliding down. When Stefani arrived, Death was ready to begin its performance. Howard walked over to greet her. Suddenly, Bobby's leg got stuck in the trampoline. Julia turned to look, causing a shard of glass to fall from her cup. Howard stepped on the shard. A sharp pain hit him instantly. At that moment, the rake fell onto the lawnmower. Howard lost his balance and fell. The mower charged straight toward him and ended his life. The relatives attended another funeral. Stefani rushed home to go through the books again. She found a note that said, JB found someone who survived. She began analyzing who might be next. Iris and Paul's children were Howard and Darlene. Howard's children were Eric, Julia, and Bobby. Darlene's children were Stefani and Charlie. They were all connected by blood and couldn't escape death. Stefani explained the pattern to the others. Now they sat and listened quietly. It was all from the restaurant's death list. The order of death matched the one Iris had seen. Originally, hundreds should have died, but Iris saved them. And now, death was coming back to claim them one by one. Death followed a specific order when it came to killing. It started with Howard's family, and then it would move on to Stefani's. Marty and Brenda weren't related by blood, so they were likely off Death's list. That meant the one in the most danger now was Howard's oldest son, Eric. But no one believed Stefani. They all thought she was obsessed or cursed, and one by one, they walked away. Eric arrived at his workplace. A spinning fan brushed against a hanging chain. The chain perfectly hooked onto Eric's nose ring. Next to him, disinfectant spilled onto the floor. The fan kept turning, slowly pulling the chain tighter and tighter. Eric couldn't remove the nose ring. He had to stand on his tiptoes, balancing higher and higher. He accidentally bumped into a nearby lamp. The lamp fell and instantly ignited the flammable disinfectant. Things got worse quickly. Glass shattered on the table. Eric was in pain and panic, desperately trying to free himself. At the last second, he managed to yank off the chain. But as he fell, he knocked over more disinfectant. Moments later, the shop exploded. Meanwhile, Stefani had been worried. Eric hadn't answered any of her calls all night. She grabbed Charlie and rushed out to look for him. On the way, they nearly got into an accident. Luckily, Eric had survived. He escaped by tearing off his burning leather clothing. But what happened next made Stefani even more convinced death was hunting them. Eric, however, still didn't believe a word of it. So Stefani decided to stay by his side to protect him. She began following Iris's notes, trying to prevent any possible chain reaction. For example, a tree trimmer suddenly fell off a branch nearby, almost hitting a boy's soccer ball, which could have struck Eric's head. Just then, they ran into Julia, who was out jogging. A garbage truck rolled by. Stefani immediately warned Eric to stay away, but Eric, being reckless, started goofing around near the truck, making silly faces. Julia ignored them, put on her headphones, and kept running. No one expected what happened next. Julia was accidentally thrown into the garbage truck. They ran after it in shock, but the driver had headphones on and couldn't hear a thing. Stephanie jumped onto the truck, reached for Julia, and managed to grab her hand, but it was still too late. Julia was crushed by the compactor. That was when the rest of the family finally realized death really was coming for them. Then Brenda revealed a shocking truth. Eric wasn't Howard's biological son. He was the result of her affair. That might be the reason Eric survived, which meant the next one in danger was Howard's younger son, Bobby. Stefani remembered a name from the notes, William, and Darlene just happened to know him. They rushed to the hospital to find him. Turns out, William was the same boy Iris saved that night long ago. William explained there were only two ways to beat death, either kill someone to take their place or die and come back. He told them he too was now sick like Iris. His time was almost up. He warned that all of them would eventually die in the exact order listed. It sounded terrifying, but the truth was even worse. William warned them, do not interfere too much with death's design, because if they failed, things could become even more tragic. He advised them to cherish what time they had left, then he quietly walked away. Eric figured if there was a way to save Bobby, then dying and coming back to life would be the easiest. He suggested Bobby eat some peanut snacks, hoping to trigger a severe allergic reaction so doctors could bring him back from the edge of death. They bought a bag of peanuts from the vending machine, but the peanuts got stuck inside. Frustrated, Eric smashed the glass to get them out. They even lifted the whole machine together. After some struggle, they finally got the peanuts. Then they stepped into the room next door, but accidentally activated the MRI scanner. A powerful magnetic force started pulling everything metal. Eric's body piercings were ripped toward the machine. Even a wheelchair behind him flew forward. Eric was crushed into the MRI machine by force. Bobby, who had just eaten the peanuts, couldn't help at all. He tried reaching for the EpiPen in Eric's hand. At that moment, a doctor noticed the commotion and opened the door. Then came the horrifying moment. A loose spring from the vending machine flew across the room and stabbed straight through Bobby's head. Stefani, Darlene, and Charlie held each other tightly. They realized they couldn't fight death anymore, so they decided to follow Iris's path and risk everything. The three of them drove deep into the mountains to Iris's old cabin. They didn't notice a coin had fallen from the notebook. An old woman picked it up from the ground. The cabin in the mountains felt creepy, as if death had already been waiting for them. Stephanie slammed the gas pedal and drove straight into the cabin. Midway, the car crashed, and her seatbelt buckle trapped her in place. Now, Death's target was Darlene. As long as she made it safely inside the cabin, everyone else might be safe. But no one saw the sparks coming from a short-circuited roof wire. Just as Darlene reached the cabin door, a huge explosion blasted the car. Stefani's body plunged into a nearby pond. Charlie was pinned down by wooden boards. Injured and struggling, Darlene crawled over and freed Charlie. She told him to save Stefani quickly. Right after she said that, a light pole fell from above and killed her on the spot. Charlie rushed to pull Stefani out. She was unconscious. Luckily, he revived her just in time. The two hugged each other and laughed. This had to be what William meant by die and come back. But when she heard Darlene had died, Stefani couldn't hold back her tears. Only she and Charlie were left from Iris's bloodline. A week later, Charlie and Stefani visited his girlfriend's house. While fixing Charlie's clothes, Stefani pricked her finger on a rose thorn. Suddenly, she remembered the nightmare. In that dream, Iris had also pricked her finger. Then, an old woman dropped a coin. It rolled down the steps and got stuck between the train tracks. A train was speeding toward it. Charlie's girlfriend's father was a doctor. When he heard how Charlie saved Stefani, he explained that Stefani hadn't technically died. If you're unconscious, and someone gets your breathing back, but your heart never stopped, then you weren't really dead, he said casually. But to Stefani and Charlie, that didn't sound good. Stephanie saw a red car, just like in her dream. Charlie's girlfriend was even wearing the same clothes as Iris had. Her bad feeling grew stronger. Then the train derailed. A crash happened. The train was charging straight at them. Stefani tripped and fell. Charlie grabbed her and pulled her up. It looked like they had escaped, but they hadn't.